Last week we started talking about depression, but only started really, and there's a lot of ground to cover. Again, the typical theme about your body and your mind will tell you when something is not going according to its natural design, and that's something you know a little bit about. In the chat room, they're already asking if you have any view on the whole Twitter controversy about Elon Musk or whatever, I guess. But I don't know how you
Okay,
feel. Yeah.
I don't actually care. I don't understand why everybody's so easily triggered by like, who cares? You know, Elon or the NSA or the CIA, or they're all the same thing. I don't know. I don't care. It's a stupid place to go and read funny things sometimes. And, like, I don't know. It's not going to affect me either way.
All right. Anyways, look.
But really,
Yeah.
I don't honestly understand why people are triggered. So do you want to enlighten me? Because, I mean, I'm sure people, the trigger happy people, maybe they need to listen to the show in depression and anxiety. Because if you're that easily triggered by somebody purchasing something, or like, I don't know, I don't understand. So please educate me.
No. I don't want to. Okay,
You're not going to tell me why I'm supposed to be triggered, damn it!
no, I'm not. I refuse, and I'll tell you why, because you're not engaged in it, and that's the healthiest way to be. So I'm not going to endanger your health by laying this all out for you. Never mind.
Right. I mean, to me, they're all just cartoon characters,
Right.
and they're all playing a role, characters, actors, whatever you want to. And some of them are funny and some of them aren't so funny. But in my life, at least here at the Ozarks Church of Nature, I don't care who they are or what position or what role they're acting in or whatever. There's nothing they do or say that affects my health and happiness. And obviously, that's not to discount the clear inflation going on, and it is extremely severe and such. But I mean, anyone that's listening to your show, Chuck, they saw all that coming anyways, and were already prepared, or changed their diets, or started growing, or did something to supplement, right? So short of that, I just move on with my day, take care of my animals, make more plans, build
Right.
more stuff, and plant more trees.
Gotcha. So, look, here's the thing, though. There are a lot of people that are so invested in virtual stuff and things that, now, this always sounds, counterintuitive when I discuss this on my show, 'cause it's like, yeah, most of you are listening on smartphones and the internet and so on. But truthfully, most of that is going to wind up being toxic. Not my show, but just what you're engaged with. And so I always say, look, at the very least, unplug sometimes. Because
Yes.
people get so caught up in this, virtual world, they forget to participate in the world around them. Now,
Yes.
I brought that up with Corbett just really quickly, where it's like, they're going to argue about the ins and outs and the stocks and how this works, and it's $40 billion, which is an amount of money I can't even really truthfully fathom that somebody's
Right.
going to pay to, buy this thing. Okay, whatever. They're going to debate it. They're going to choose sides. Elon's a savior. Elon's a devil, so on and so forth. And meanwhile, they have no idea what is in the water that they're cooking their food in and taking showers in.
Right.
Okay? And they don't know
Or
what's
completely oblivious to their suicidal neighbor, right, who's depressed, where, if you were being a good neighbor and you did actually care about humanity, then what some rich character over there is spending their money on really shouldn't be your interest. Your interest should be getting out to see your neighbors and checking your own health and checking their, making things better, like right here, right now. This whole internet world, I mean, it's cool. I'm glad it exists.
Right.
We wouldn't be able to be doing things like this and, reach out to a lot of really great people that I've met all over the world throughout these years. But,
right.
I think we need to find a limit. And you said balance, tune out occasionally.
Sure.
Or like In my case, I tuned out forever. And my mental health has only improved.
Right.
And in fact, I question if I would have been able to attempt to regain or gain or learn what actual sanity is if I was still in that chasing rabbit holes, fighting them, blaming everyone. And, yeah, they do bad things, right? But we can spend our whole life looking at bad things that other people do, or we could nourish and enrich our own lives by doing good things and reversing that, right?
Right.
Is that crazy?
No, not at all. And here's the ultimate point in my mind, which is, because people say, oh, because of the pandemic, everybody got all disconnected and whatnot. And I say, no, they didn't get disconnected because of the pandemic. The pandemic was an acceleration of what was already taking place, where people were disconnected from one another and they were not engaging in a real sense. And this, in my mind, is at the core of, now they're starting to acknowledge, younger people are seemingly more depressed. Well, maybe that's because they're not interacting with one another as we used to. And I'm not saying that we didn't used to be depressed, and I'm not saying the generations before us didn't get down in the dumps, and I'm not saying, all I'm saying is they don't have the same experiential interaction with life that we used to have, and that used to be normal one way or another. I know you're not supposed to use the word normal, but I don't care. The thing is, it was normal. It was normal, whether for good or bad, right? You were still actually participating in life.
Right. Social skills, you know? Whether you're the bully or getting bullied, eventually one of us, or most of us, are going to learn the dynamics of why that took place, right? And hopefully, if we are on a path of self-healing or self-reflection, then, we're not going to be blaming ourselves or others. We're going to be figuring out how we can take responsibility to not land in those situations again, right? I'm glad you brought up the whole separation thing, though, because sometimes, Chuck, let me ask you this. Do you ever wonder if the whole, I'll just call it the 2020 thing, if it was just a big fat mirror reflection of how society was already operating, and just like, here, I'm going to hold up the mirror, and, like the Illuminati or whatever, or aliens or whoever, whatever, sitting back. Do you think they're really going to fall for this if we really show them how anti-nature and anti-human they're already acting? Well, here, let's push a little further and see if they'll go along with this.
See, it's funny. I think you and I were talking back then in 2019 kind of often, and I kept saying to you, I believe that 2020 is literally going to be a time of clarity. And, people got sick of me saying it, but I believed it. And you know what? I will pat myself on the back and say I was right. Because this clarified exactly what you're talking about. Society was already operating in its surrogate form, where you're not really interacting with somebody. You're using a proprietary system to interact one way or another. You're being positioned so that social distancing was kind of a norm then. They just didn't tell you it was 6 feet. Everybody stayed away from everybody else, and this seemed to be common in our society altogether. Okay? So, yeah, I think what happened is people's vision got a lot clearer on this. 2020, if you will, if you had your eyes open in 2020. So,
and even people that didn't have their eyes open, they were forced to open in some cases. They're like, oh, wow.
Right.
Wait, what?
Exactly. You had to recognize certain things that were going on. Clarity was maybe thrust upon you, wasn't even necessarily a choice. And this gets into not embracing the natural design again. So, could you explain that to me in your way? How basically, a lot of times I think depression, somebody who's, down, kind of in a down slope sometimes, is simply not embracing their natural condition, their natural design. Part of it is connecting with other people, but there's more to it. So where should we begin on that now that I've already killed like 20 minutes of our time? Go ahead, Christie. It's all you. Sorry.
So I just want to say, all right, and you're asking me my opinion. I just let this be stated. Anything I say is my opinion based on my experience. It's not I'm not trying to say other people's opinions or experiences are wrong.
Right.
But my opinion is that everything about government is or believing in it is a mental issue. And it clearly that is all government promotes, and with their clear gaslighting techniques. You guys just talked about Stockholm Syndrome, which is clearly prevalent in today's society. But government, come on, this is like first grade or elementary conspiracy or truth or talk, govern, right, to control, mend the mind. That's not going to change. And so my approach, and keep in mind, I was the exact opposite before than I am today, right? So this is what I've grown into. My approach today is not to engage with people who lie to me or people who try to control me. And it's I just have this thing. Once you lie to me, in fact, I'm going through this right now with a mechanic that has my car, $1,700 in maintenance, and went to pick it up and he wouldn't accept my money. And after wasting all this time and multiple rides out there, I'm just like, I am done. And he has my car, you know what I mean? But I'm done because you cannot engage with abusive, psychopathic, liar, manipulating control freaks for your mental health. It doesn't matter if they're called government or parents or children or brothers or sisters or friends or co-workers or bosses. It doesn't matter what you call them.
Could be lovers too. Some people are in these toxic relationships. Same thing is going on whether they recognize it or not. Somebody's lying to them and trying to control them at all times. I'm not saying that, somebody might not lie once in a while. Look, people are human. But, when you got a pattern of that,
right,
it doesn't matter.
Okay, yeah. So a little white lie or a lie based on fear, like I'm afraid to tell her or him this because they might judge me or whatever. I get that, okay? But again, when you realize that you're safe with that person, come clean and, be honest and, and that's the thing. And everyone is worthy and capable of redemption, right? And at least for me personally, I will forgive anyone that takes responsibility for their actions, right? We were all, and again, my former self, on pills, drinking alcohol, programmed by TV, media, politicians, churches. I was not the epitome of health, right? Or a healthy state of mind. So I just think the better we get at saying no to psychopaths, the healthier we become, not only mentally, but also physically, because the physical is just a byproduct of our emotional / mental / spiritual state.
See, but there's a circular relationship there, because if your mind is not right, your body will not be right. But also, if your body's not right, it'll work on your mind and make that not right as well. So here's the thing. You got to take care of the whole thing. All right, you can't just, I'm going to ignore the problems in my mind, in my heart, so to speak. I'm going to ignore those. I'm going to take care of my body. It's not going to work.
Right.
It's just not. It's the guy who oh, he was working out in the gym every single day and he was doing just fine and he dropped dead. Yeah, probably wasn't taking care of something.
Right.
Either that or he had a vaccine, But it's one of these things. You have to take care of the whole thing. So you have to be aware of the physical. You have to take care of the physical. That's a given. But you also must do self-care on the rest. And the beginning of it is exactly what you're saying. First problem is you don't add extra weight, extra stress, extra, disease, pressure. Okay? I can describe people in a lot of different ways. And a lot of that will come through people. Not, your environment's one thing, the environment you're in, but also the living things you surround yourself with play a huge role here. So it almost sounds like I'm contradicting myself, right? People are too disconnected, but beware of being around certain people. I don't see a contradiction there. I think that there are people that, for one reason or another, are on a destructive path, and they usually want company, okay, on their destructive path. Now, you have choices. You, the individual, have choices. And this is a key element here to a lot of people. They eventually snap. They can't take it anymore. How many times have you heard that? I got stressed out. I did this. I've done it. I know,
absolutely.
Not going to speak out of school, but Christie, I know you well enough to know that you've had a few.
I can rage. Yeah. I can scream, I can cry, I can cuss, I can, say poor me, and I'm never going to make it. I have done and can do and may again do all of those things.
Right.
Which, by the way, are totally normal when you're a human living on this earth. Right. Now, to what degree we take these things and how far we let them control us, right? See, first thing we need to do is stop looking at depression or anxiety as a disease. It's a symptom of something else going on. So just as if I'm helping somebody, say, with heart disease or autoimmune or a damn so-called common cold or whatever, the treatment essentially is the same. And you don't want to just block the symptoms, right, by taking mind-numbing pills. If you're feeling depression or anxiety and you're having physical symptoms due to it, that's your body screaming out. There is something going on. Look at me. Pay attention to me. Whatever this is. So we do, in a sense, Chuck, you're not contradicting yourself. There's such a thing as discernment. But we do have to take that time to go inward. And if we don't know what the triggers or what's causing the symptoms, depression / anxiety or anything else, that's where we may have to, say, isolate or spend time in solitude. And honestly, I would actually recommend nature or pets or massage or affirmative prayer or exercise or, yoga or breathing or a hobby or something like that, right? But
they used to say to us all the time, right? Everything in moderation is okay. They were half right. Not everything in moderation is okay, but even isolation, again, sounds like I'm going to speak against what I said, but no, sometimes isolation is a good thing. Incrementally, being a hermit, I don't think is a good idea for most people. Okay, I really would never suggest that. Look, just go.
We're social creatures.
Yeah, we're social creatures, so don't entirely and completely remove yourself from any interaction with other people for a long period of time.
So it is important at times to isolate yourself. For example, and I'm speaking from my own experience, okay, this is my own opinion. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. Isolation for me in my healing time was essential for many reasons. Number one, in today's society, you're not allowed to talk about so-called negative feelings or depressive thoughts or things like that, right? Your parents don't want to hear it. Your friends don't want to hear it. Your church doesn't want to hear it. Your doctor will give you more pills, sure. But so if we're going to heal our trauma, right, which is the root of the symptoms that we're talking about today, we need to be in a safe place. Many of us do not have a safe place, safe people, safe whatever, right? And, oh, I could tell my mom or my best friend, but if they're always telling you to go to the doctor and take a pill, they're not listening to you. So spending that time with yourself will help you sort out those thoughts without the energies of other things, people, entities around you, right? And also in my healing, like some things that were crucial and like rules that I literally made for myself long ago, of course, was the no politics and, tune them all out and they don't exist anymore. But some of my other rules are, well, I guess I have a lot of rules. So if we're looking at...
It's okay. Go ahead.
If we're looking at our healing and taking it seriously, this alone time with ourselves is crucial because, one, we're safe to feel our thoughts without somebody trying to lock us up, right? Or scaring somebody else. Two, we're allowed to cry. We're allowed to scream. We're allowed to express every dark feeling, emotion we ever had. Like, and misery loves company. You brought that up, the whole, right. People like to complain. And, that's not a healing place to be, right? So if all of your friend circle is just about talking about your traumas or your targeting or your pain or, my inflammation is bigger than yours or something, that's, you're going to have to use some self-responsibility and try, if you want healing, to remove yourself from those situations, right? And so another one of my rules that I would do, especially like when I was trying to get my memory back, I mean, for those of you who don't know, 6 years ago today, I couldn't talk or walk. I didn't even know my name, my neighbors' names, you know what I'm saying? So, and I reminded myself how to heal by listening to my old shows, which, a lot of those things didn't work because I was in a different classroom now and I had to get to the root, not just the best herb or the best juice or the best diet or all of this stuff, right? Because as you mentioned, it's a holistic, whole with a W approach where you take everything into consideration. So like my rules, I wouldn't listen to other people's stories of trauma. I wouldn't read Kathy O'Brien or anything like that because I wanted to make sure that my memories were my own and only mine. Because number one, I already knew how easily programmable I was, right? When we all realize we've been mind control since birth, then we can start to heal it. So I knew that, holy crap, I'm susceptible to this through the media, the books, and I didn't want to listen to anything that would confuse me as to who I am or what I experienced, and you get that a lot in support groups like targeted individuals or things like that, political type persecution groups, some, at least the ones that I used to know.
See, those are good for acknowledgement. Those kind of groups, whether they're, and people do this online now. It's good for acknowledgement because, at a certain point you start to feel that you are special in that this is only affecting you. And what you can find out by interacting with other people is that it is not singular. It's not just you. You know what I mean? The world is against me. No, they're not. They're just not. And you may find there are other people who feel that way. And just finding that out is a good thing, I would say, because literally, you and I share something, right? And we'll tell each other, look, I had this problem, and you go, oh my God, so did I. Now, that little bit of acknowledgement that we have between us, whatever it is, it could be very personal. It could be we just had a little thing right before going to air about car problems. It could be that. Okay, it could be anything. It's like, well, the fact that you don't feel alone in your struggle is good.
Right.
But what you don't want to do is sink into it and center your life on your pain. So you have to avoid making the symptom the center of your life. Would you agree with that?
100%, Chuck. Absolutely. So yeah, groups are good for one thing. And like, as you meant, like you and I can talk and I have friends we can talk. That's healthy, right? That's what I think I said this last week. We don't need to pay the therapist. We need good, honest friends. And never once in all the years I've known you, Chuck, have you ever dwelled on one issue and let it control your life. Like, we have a healthy exchange and share, oh, this happened, okay, oh, that sucks, oh, I'm sorry, give you a hug, and then, like, all right, how do we pick up these pieces? And, so yeah, it's important to feel acknowledged and be understood and to realize you're not alone, but to center your life around it. I mean, really, we can all, I realized my entire life up until like a decade or so ago was built literally and based on trauma and decisions I made in that mindset, and was, I'm sure I mentioned last time, suicidal most of my life, okay? Depression, anxiety, all of that. So, I know both sides. I definitely mired in misery for a really long time, not because it was particularly fun, but I didn't know another way. Trauma and things like this weren't openly talked about, right? Because it was only dudes coming back from war. And if you're in a family and, being sold or raped or passed around or whatever, you're just the trouble-making child that, of course, needs to be medicated because, you can't shame the family or what, there's so many things. And, like it or not, growing up in this world, we all have varying degrees of trauma. So are we going to let that rule our lives, or are we going to say, thank you for this opportunity to make myself stronger and overcome this and find out what I'm really made of, right? And then make your traumas your superpower. Because once you get a handle on them, right, and take responsibility for limiting triggers and things, then you're now able to help others, right? And hopefully they don't have to, experience as dark as, a lot of us have. Right. But maybe sometimes we all do, because how else are we really going to learn it, right? Sometimes the pain has to be so much, before people want to change. There's that comfort zone thing. And, whether it's the miserable relationship for 20 or 30 years or the job, right, and, you're holding on to it because of the prize or what society would think, or I have the only marriage in the family that didn't fail, or I have the best job my family ever had, or, I make more money than all my friends, so I have to, whatever the situation is with you, we really have to look at our choices, why we're making these choices, and if we aren't completely content with our circumstances, we have to be able to reflect on what we can do to actually know and believe that you do have the best life possible and you are content, right? Isn't that what everybody wants? Everyone, what do you want in life? Peace, love, and happiness. Everybody says that. Right. So what are you doing to create that?
Well, and here's the other thing. A stop sign for a lot of people is this, you get trapped in, I'm just suffering. I'm suffering. I'm a victim. I'm in pain. all of this, and you and I, one of the earliest conversations where you and I got real with each other, I recall conversations like a nut, by the way. And
my homelessness, huh?
Well, back then we were
when
talking.
I couldn't walk, and I'm sure it was dramatic.
You
Thanks
were
for
just
putting up with me.
You were just getting there. You were just getting around to functional, and you were talking about how you were going to feed people out of the van and all that. And I said, yeah, okay, that's great and everything. And we started talking, and we were sharing a few things personal. And you said, well, you gotta work with the pain that you're in. You were trying to help me still. And I was like, please don't. I understand where I'm at. And I was going through something. It was a tough time, but where you were. So the thing is this, I said to you, I said, look, no matter what, I know this, that pain, that darkness, whether it's what you're going through or it's what I'm going through or what I've already been through in my life, I've been through it enough times to know this, that is the only way that real wisdom gets built, is through that. And so therefore, you don't get trapped in it. You're not supposed to remain in it. You don't hang out like, I'm going to take a college course in wisdom and be in misery for the next 4 years. No. Now you see somebody in not so dire a situation. They're in some darkness, but it isn't pitch black like you know. They're in some pain, but it's not the agony you know. But you know it enough to say, you know what? I got to a point of agony. I got to a point where the darkness was so thick I thought I could bite it. Okay, you don't have to go there. You might be able to prevent somebody else by giving them a little bit of that wisdom that you earned.
Wow. Yeah.
So, and that was one of the things that we were talking about. I forget which one of us said which part of it, but that's what we came together on. And it was after the horrible situation you had been through, and then you got sick again. And
I was in the hospital like 2 months after that.
Yeah. And I was a bit worried for you, and I wasn't really in contact with you, but it was like, wow, she's sick again. But here's what I knew. I knew I wasn't going to be talking about, my dead friend Christie. I knew that wasn't going to happen because I knew you weren't going to give up that easy. And so that has always remained with me, that conversation we had. And, of course, both of us had these ideas already, but we were able to share them. And so therefore, here we are today. And that is the kind of thing that you can do.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you for the recollection. Yeah, that's awesome. And I do, I want to say this about, that I think it's funny that you mentioned, like, you're in the van and, we're just barely starting to walk and talk again, and you're trying to help me, and you're like, calm down, Christie, But
right.
I just want to say that even when things are crappy, that's actually the best time to go out of your way and help other people. And yeah, even in my homelessness, I was still feeding other people or giving them stuff from my storage and doing what, because I had a tuna can and alcohol. That was my stove. So I would literally cook meals, whether it's quesadillas, or sometimes I would get hired to cook fancy dinners for, people with more money than me. And then they'd give me all the leftovers and I'd bring it all down there. And so helping people, like if you're in a really depressed state of mind, helping somebody else is, I think, one of the quickest ways to help you feel better. Right. Yeah. And, I also, you mentioned, giving up. And I want to say that when you reach that point that I've had enough and I give up, that's actually a really good place to be, because that probably means you reached the threshold of pain that you need to start making changes. And I actually did a video like 5 years ago called Giving Up on Life to Realize Your Dreams. And the premise behind that is really, when we're in a traumatized state of mind, right, or even say a low grade depression, not even clinical, but that's pretty common and normal, right? Or just in that, just getting by kind of constant dull state of life. And like where I realized that my entire life was built and based on trauma, whatever dreams or ideas I had weren't even mine to begin with. They were programmed, right? And I thought that I liked Pepsi because my mom said Pepsi is better than Coke, right? Or because I watched more Coke commercials, or I thought I was choosing the best deodorant or the best food because I watched it replay on a commercial every day, right? Or I was told that, you can only achieve this much. Or so all of my dreams at the time were limiting because I didn't know there was a grander picture outside that constant state of trauma. Unrecognized and undealt with trauma, might I add, right? So sometimes we literally do have to give up and surrender to that flow. And you know what? Make yourself comfortable. Make that your number one focus. And for me, I had to go to nature. It didn't matter, people offered me their couches or this and that. Nope. I knew I had to stay in the van. I had to go to nature and just be inspired, literally, and be reminded that there's no way you can spend that kind of time in nature and not come out with a better understanding of life in general and how the world works, or doesn't work, right? And if you're able to recognize what doesn't work, then it's your duty to yourself, your purpose, your path, your healing to go away from it. Even if you don't know what's on the other side or what right is. But if you know that everything you're currently surrounded by is wrong, believe it and change it. Whatever it takes. Even if you have to live in a tent or a van or a storage unit or a moldy shed, even if you have to do that, because that's traumatic as well.
Yes.
But as you were discussing wisdom is just simply experienced knowledge.
Right.
So we can sit here and talk about this stuff till we're blue in the face like I used to. And Soul Journeys Radio and Truth Brigade and all of that stuff, right? But I didn't actually live those things, right? And even before my homelessness, I used to help homeless people, and I thought I knew what helping homeless people was. But no, I had to actually be homeless to really understand and know what helps homeless people or not, etc., and how to get out of it, right? So thankfully, as a result of my traumas, I have been able to help people get out of situations that they saw no end to, just like myself.
Right. And look, some of these things come over time. I spent 10 years trying to be a rock star. Right? And I was after something that I thought I wanted. I didn't really want that. And it took my experience to get there. It's like, well, wait a minute, if you really thought, and I really did think at one time that was the path I wanted, that was the major life change I wanted. Frankly, even though it's trying sometimes, I am really happy doing a talk radio show. With the act of just doing the show, I'm extremely happy with that. It took me a long time.
And you're really great at it, too, Chuck.
Well, I appreciate that, but even if I wasn't, I'm happy doing it. I don't know how good I am, but I just, it doesn't matter.
Just my opinion.
I'm able to do it, but I'm able to, and it is exactly what I should have been doing all along. And it took me until, my 40th year to figure this out. Okay, look, again, through my teenage years and into my 20s, I thought that's what I wanted. Then I just figured I needed a job. None of this stuff made me happy doing it.
Right.
None of it at all. And, thought I wanted to form a family, which I did. I just chose the wrong woman to start with. But, I wanted that, and I wanted this, exactly what I'm doing right now.
So I have a question for you, Chuck.
Yeah.
Because, for me, radio and all of this stuff happened because of trauma.
Yeah.
So for you, was your life path, did it go from rock star to radio? Was there some kind of trauma in between that guided you here?
Tons of it. And really...
Okay, so there you go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're here to build us up. They're not here to break us down. They're here to teach us that experiential wisdom that you keep mentioning us to get us on the path, right? If we're depressed, we're not on our soul path, period. End of story.
That's it.
And you know what? That's the time. Take your isolation, work out those deep pressed emotions, and get that deep rest in a comfortable, safe place, whether that's your own home or a trusted friend or whatever. But there's not one single person I've met that it wasn't a traumatic incident or a few that guided them to the path that they couldn't see before in the traumatized state of mind.
Right. And look, whenever it comes, it's supposed to come, by the way, because I should have realized this so much earlier in my life. I was a little kid right after my father died. I was lonely, and it was the talk radio that kept me company. Right. And I loved it and understood it and appreciated it. And I should have just realized that. I kept it with me my whole life. Always listened to. I was a regular listener of all kinds of different personalities, formats, everything. Talk radio made the most sense to me out of anything, and it was right in front of me all the time. And I didn't say, I should just go do this. I didn't do that until way later. And, broken hearts and broken plans and lots of pain, and I ended up homeless at a certain point and all kinds of things. And eventually I got to, you know what, I need to just do this. And the act of doing it in and of itself is exactly what I'm supposed to do. Sometimes I don't know much else but that anymore. But honestly, it's the only time that I get to do what it is I need to do. And everything else I do in my life, actually, it's funny, centering something on you, something that you enjoy, centering your life on that is not a bad thing. Even though it does take some work and I had to learn a lot of things and get over some hurdles that maybe some other people don't have to get over to do it.
Right.
It doesn't matter. I got there and I'm doing it.
But you're just further proof that, people let their which I call them diff abilities, but they let their so-called disabilities rule their life. Well, for example, I'm blind. I could never sit on a computer and do radio and run my own station and engineer, all the things you have, right? And that's simply not true. Mm-hmm. You're living proof that where there's a will, there's a way. And I do believe that we can overcome anything. We just have to find that different ability, right? And I also, maybe unpopular, but I believe that these conditions kind of help bring out our superpower, right? So if we're, say, maybe your physical eyes, I'm just hypothetically speaking, maybe if they don't work at optimal level, maybe your third eye or other senses are pretty high off the charts, right, to make up for that. I don't believe that there's a soul that's incapable of the same amount of greatness as anyone else.
Well, there's a constant, refrain in military circles and certain ones especially, which is effective for a reason. You adapt, you overcome. You adapt, you overcome. That's it. That's all there is to it. And Look, whether it's a seemingly crippling emotional condition, a physical condition, you adapt, you overcome, and at all times there are opportunities to heal. And you can learn about that at mytrueessence.net, ChristieAphrodite.com as well. And we're going to keep doing this every Tuesday. We started with depression and got into, how do you conquer a lot of things?
It's all the same thing.
Yeah. Funny thing about that, it seems to rhyme, as they used to say, right? History doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And so do your traumas, and so do the solutions. You will find them if you seek them. ChristieAphrodite.com, mytrueessence.net. The Ochelli Effect is done for tonight. No matter who you are, where you are, when you are, remember I am merely Ochelli, and all of you are indeed the Effect. Good night.